Greetings, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Dharma Junkie podcast. I am Justin Otto, and in this episode, my guest is Tam Veilloux. Tam is the creative mind behind a book called The Energy Almanac, which focuses on astrology as a guiding force through life. I had no idea there was actually so much that went into astrology. I was always just, I read my horoscope here and there, but I never really got into astrology, so to speak. And I certainly learned a lot by having this conversation with her. Now, unfortunately, I did have some technical issues during the recording of the episode, so there is a little bit of glitch starting at around the half-hour mark. But, it is what it is. I hope you enjoy the episode. Without further ado, Tam Veilloux.
You might catch yourself sliding in and out of a hallucinatory state. Just relax and enjoy it. Just relax and enjoy it.
This is an experiment in mind formation. Information, forming, controlling, operating your mind and your brain. We're using digital techniques to overload, scramble, confuse, unfocus your mind. The natural state of the brain is chaos. Chaos is beautiful.
Good evening. How are you, Tam?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on the show. So I wanted to talk to you about the Energy Almanac. What exactly is that?
The Energy Almanac. The big question. The Energy Almanac is an annual publication that I put together that actually offers the readers weekly, bite-sized astrology predicting the week ahead.
Interesting.
So if you want to know when to zig or when to zag each week and what area you should avoid or which area you should really step more fully into, this book has all of that, along with, you would call them resources, holistic resources every single month.
Awesome. That sounds very cool. I could probably use some of that in my life.
Everybody could.
Absolutely. How long have you been doing that?
It's in its third year. So the new book just came out. It launches every either October or November. It's in its third year, and we're just getting ready to start writing the fourth book soon. So that next fall, it'll come out.
Very cool. And when exactly is it released every year?
In October or November. Yeah.
Okay. So you already put this year's out? The
book for 2021 is just hitting the shelves now. It's in Amazon and all over the place. But 2020 has been in use, for...
Right. Just last year, obviously.
Right.
That's very cool. So what gave you the idea to put together something like that?
Oh, boy. I hope you're sitting down. This is the craziest story. I literally was invited to a business meeting with a friend across town. I was pretty sure she was going to be hiring me as an illustrator for one of her projects because I'm an artist as much as I'm a writer and a transformational coach. So I go over and I sit in her office and we do our small talk thing. And then she says, hey, Tam, I don't know how to tell you this, but your business wants to talk to you. I'm like, what? My business wants to talk to me? So next thing I know, she's channeling information from the other side. And basically she's saying there's a book. It wants to be born through you. It has to do with astrology and with your illustrations and your art. And this book is going to be about astrology. And, I have had an interest in astrology for my whole life, but I'm not an astrologer. I put my face into my hands and I cried. She channeled for about 90 minutes of information and told me exactly how this book was going to feel, what it was going to be like, what kind of ideas it wanted to include in it. And next thing you know, I birthed the first book about maybe 4 months later. It hit the market. I found an astrologer who wanted to work with me, and I brought it to life, and it was a success.
I was going to ask if you had delved into astrology any in order to write it, but you just clarified that.
I learned it through osmosis. So
Okay.
I knew about astrology, but I didn't know about astrology. It's a huge subject. It's so deep, it's so layered, and it's really scary for beginners. And so I've worked with I've used 2 different master astrologers at this point, but I've learned so much about astrology that I'm hoping for 2022 it'll be a lot more of my voice, because I do understand that when people are buying a product, they're quite often buying you, the person.
Right.
And so I'll keep infusing a little more of me, a little more of me, a little more of me all the time. But for now, I have had 2 really talented, incredible master astrologers who helped me bring this thing to life.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a lot of people out there who, think that astrology is pretty hokey and, not valid. They don't think there's any evidence to back it up, obviously, because there really isn't any scientific evidence to back it up as far as I know. Maybe you could, expound on that a little bit. What would you tell people like that doubt in astrology?
Well, there we go. The big cosmic question. So if you're a woman and you have your menses, you have your monthlies, then you're following the moon. Your menses will typically come based on a 28.5-day cycle, which is based specifically on the moon. Most people are following astrology and they don't even know it. If you're paying attention to the winter solstice and the summer solstice and summer equinox, and you're paying attention to those kinds of things, then you're paying attention to astrology. And the rest of it is that astrology is patterns. So if you really want to prove that astrology works, you only need to look at patterns. So what we're living in 2020 is a replica of what happened about 500 years ago at the time of Martin Luther when he was leaving the Catholic Church. The same kind of energies, the same feelings were exactly present relative to the same topics. Back in 500 years ago, it was really about the church as an institution.
Right.
This time around, it's more about government and healthcare as the institutions that we're railing against. So the themes are there. So with astrology, you're always looking for patterns and themes, and it will prove itself. It will simply prove itself. And also, if you have a birthday every year that you celebrate, you're following astrology.
Right, obviously. That's very interesting. Yeah, I've always been really interested in astrology, but I know, other than, reading a horoscope, I know absolutely nothing about it.
Well, that's you and most people, so the horoscopes that you would read in a magazine or in a newspaper, right, those are what you would call sun sign astrology. It's, hey, I'm a what's your sign, by the way? I didn't even ask you.
I'm a Cancer.
You're a Cancer. Okay. So you're like, hey, I'm a Cancer. And so you read the article in Cosmopolitan magazine, and it's supposed to cover every person who's a Cancer on the planet.
Right.
And the answer to that is just no. So there's a million ways to be a Cancer based on where it is on your chart. So what degree is it in? What sign, which house is it sitting in? Which moon are you? There's so many components to astrology that the sun sign astrology and the horoscopes are what give astrology a bad name, really. There's just so many layers to it.
Right.
A million ways to be a Cancer.
Yeah, for sure. I've known some other Cancers, and we were all very different.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a Virgo, and my husband is also a Virgo. And I say to him every day, you're like the anti-Virgo because Virgos are typically orderly and they really prefer things to be neat. And he doesn't mind dropping his socks on the floor next to the bed and things like that. I'm like, you're the anti-Virgo. How could this be? Right. And so, a million ways to be a Gemini, a million ways to be an Aries. It's just, you have to be willing to go a little bit deeper and know the moon and know what your rising sign is. You have to know your north node, your south node. These are all aspects that create the real you.
Right. And how do you find out that information?
A basic birth chart will give any astrologer all the information you need, and really all the information you need. So there's all kinds of free programs all over the internet. Okay. Back in the day, I think it was Jean Dixon was the famous astrologer, and you would draw a chart by hand, and you'd have a dial and you'd use a ruler, and it was crazy. But now you can go, like my favorite one that I love to use is astro charts. So you astro-charts.com, type in your name, your birth date, and your birth location, because the longitude and latitude are what really creates the birth chart. And boom, like in an instant, you get an entire report that's all about you.
Interesting. Very cool.
So simple. Yeah. But the rubber meets the road when you have a really talented astrologer who can help you really decode what it means for your Chiron to be in Aries, or your Jupiter to be in your 8th house in the sign of Libra. So all those little aspects are what really make astrology such a big subject. And it's also why a lot of people like just back off. Like, I don't dare to go there. I remember being there. I remember being afraid of astrology.
Really?
It's too confusing. Yeah, it's too confusing. There's so much to it.
Right. Degrees
and aspects and houses and astro speak and delineations and dignity. It's a lot. It's just a lot.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot. Yeah, I guess for the novice, or someone who hasn't really delved into it before, that can be a little bit overwhelming.
It is, and that's why one of the things that I did as a coach, I said, what if I have an apprentice, or I have somebody new who really is trying, what would I tell them? And I always say, like, find out your sun sign. That's the sun sign is who you are at your core. It's like who you are when you're alone. That's your sun sign. You're a Cancer. So your moon sign is how you do emotions. It's also like the area of life, like depending which house it's in, it's the area of life that you'd be most emotional about. So my sun sign is a Virgo. My moon sign is Taurus. Taurus rules the things that we value. It's a very stable sign, very rooted, and they love beauty and home. And so, yeah, I am super emotional about the things that I value. I value communication. I value laughter and fun and joy. I value beauty. Like, I'm the one who will buy flowers to put on my table every week. I'm the one who wants the food to be on the plate really pretty. That's very Taurus of me. And I do get emotional about it. I absolutely do. So learn your sun sign, learn your moon sign. But then the other one, and that is really, really important, is to know your rising sign, or the ascendant. So the ascendant is the zodiac that was on the eastern horizon at the time of your birth.
Okay.
And that sign, your rising sign, is basically the mask that you wear as you do life. It's kind of like your coping mechanism for life. Your rising sign is what other people would guess you to be. Do you know your rising sign?
I do not.
Oh, you're going to have to figure that out. Your rising sign is the mask that you show the world. So here's an example. My rising sign is Sagittarius. Even though if somebody would ask me, what's your sign, I would say Virgo. Mm-hmm. The way that I show up for life is like a Sagittarian, which loves fun and adventure and is a very thinking sign. The Sagittarians are about belief systems, theology and philosophy. They're the philosopher. And that's very much exactly what I do my coaching in. As a transformational coach, I'm all about the belief system. And I know how to reach deeply into somebody's unconscious mind and figure out what's going on and help them untangle that mess.
Interesting. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, I had no idea there was so much that went into it. That's actually pretty fascinating.
It is. Yeah. It is.
So you've been doing this for 3 years, going on 4 now. Mm-hmm. In what ways has it changed your life since you've started really taking an interest in astrology and just putting out that information? Have you noticed any kind of transformative effect in your life?
Holy moly. Yeah, absolutely. My goodness. So when I first started this project, it was gifted to me from the universe, is what I like to say. Mm-hmm. And I was very rapidly able to connect all the dots. Like she channeled this message to me. I'm driving home, and all of a sudden the memories of astrology start flooding into my brain. I remember being a little girl and my parents talking astrology, and I remember reading my horoscope in the teen magazines. And then as a adult woman with children, I was interested about my children's signs. So, I started connecting all these dots, which was interesting enough. But what happened as I started to really dig into writing the book with the astrologer, I started to melt down, quite honestly. I started to really melt down, and all the feelings of, I don't know what I'm doing. Who am I to do this? I can't do this stuff. I'm not bringing this into the world. I went into panic mode, and it got really, really dark and scary. And one day I had had enough of the sobbing. I got on the phone with the astrologer, and I'm like, what's going on right now with me? Something is going on with me, and I can't put my finger on it. So she looked up my astrology chart, and she checked where the planets were and where I was in my life. And she goes, oh my gosh. She said, you're in your Saturn return. And it was, she then went on to explain what the Saturn return was, which is irrelevant right now. But the point is, it was the first time that I really understood the profundity of how astrology affects your life. If you've ever been in a really long funk but couldn't figure it out, chances are there are planets transiting for you, affecting a specific area of your life. And that was what was going on for me. And I was able to go, holy mother of God, how did that happen? That, she actually told me, you've got about 3 more weeks of it, and then this, and then that. And she was exactly right. And so as I've been able to have a reading every year, so every year the planets move, so every year around your birthday you go get another chart done, I've been able to time things differently. I can go, okay, well, I'm not going to do this project then, because that's the time when I really need to be more internal. I've been able to direct my life in a way that has so much more flow. I now understand if I'm about to hit a bump, don't try climbing around it. Just, sit with it and figure it out. So yeah, timing becomes very, very different. I now run my entire business based on astrology. I will review when it tells me to review. I will go all in when it tells me to go all in. Makes life so much easier. And that's what the book does for people. The Energy Almanac is a guide that will help you no matter what your sign is, because it's about mundane astrology.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So while we were talking, because we're on the subject, I had to look it up. I had to look it up and see what my ascending was, and see what my moon sign was. And
okay, tell me.
So I am a Leo ascendant, which having read a little bit about it right now, is very accurate. Very accurate.
Okay.
And I haven't read the moon in Virgo part yet, but.
Oh, moon in Virgo. So I can tell you about that. Okay. Does it tell you which house it's in?
No, it does not.
Okay. Well, somewhere there, are you looking at astro charts?
No. Unfortunately.
Okay, a different one.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, a moon in Virgo. So Virgo is the sign of, we're really the analysts. So we're all about, I'm a Virgo, so I know this really intently. Virgo is all about perfectionism through analysis. And they're also the sign that is of service and order. So I imagine that you are able to bring order to things emotionally. I would bet that you're very, maybe even in your head a little bit about your emotions, as in you can compartmentalize and really make sense of them, if you will, and analyze them and look at them. Well, I feel that way because of XYZ.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. That's that. And the Leo rising part of you is the part that, you don't mind being seen. Leo really is that, they're the clown. They're the willing to be seen, willing to be on stage. It's why you run a podcast, for heaven's sake. Yep. You don't mind being the voice and all eyes on you. And they're also very, very playful and fun. They're the theater student, or maybe even an actor. That's that Leo. So that's how everybody sees you. But really, at your core, you're just this nurturing soul who is emotional about home life and take good care of other people. You're all about love. That's that Cancer sign.
That sounds pretty accurate, actually.
Nice. Yay me.
Yeah, I actually used to be a touring musician for several years and played by myself, actually. So
no kidding. Oh gosh,
makes a lot of sense.
That's awesome. Yep, true, total Leo.
Yep. Makes a lot of sense now.
Yep.
Well, see, I'm glad I had you on the show. I never knew that. Yeah, I would have probably never even looked into it. Well, maybe eventually.
I'll just send you a bill.
I'm expecting one, actually.
Okay.
I wanted energy psychology. I noticed that in your bio, and I just wanted to talk about that. What exactly do you term, and what do you define the term energy psychology as?
It's kind of a new term. It's kind of a new agey kind of term, but energy psychology kind of encompasses the kind of work that is sort of uses the quantum field to create results. It seems invisible for when things happen. It's about the psychology of the unconscious mind. Okay. And it really does harness the quantum field. So these include modalities such as emotional freedom technique, which is my number one thing that I use. Energy psychology, neuro-linguistic programming, that's another one that I use. Some other ones might be MCT, neurochemical transfer, that's another one. There's a few out there, IET, there's quite a few modalities that fall into the realm of addressing the unconscious mind, the energy of the psychology that's going on.
Right. The archetypal mind.
Yeah, I guess you could call it that. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually dabbled in EFT myself. So.
Oh, don't dabble in it. Go all in. The universe only moves for those who go all in. Do it because it is so life changing.
Yeah, I've only unfortunately I've only been able to have a few sessions, but I definitely would like to do more.
Do it yourself. Go to YouTube and go to Emotional Freedom Technique, and you will find thousands of videos that you can just follow along. It will change your entire life. If you can clear the BS that's in the back of your mind running the show, everything changes.
Yeah. I've been there before, and it seems like when you get in those states, at least personally, I'll be good for a while, and then it doesn't feel like I'm ever really free of some of those things. It seems they kind of linger.
Are you getting to the root?
Probably not. I mean, judging by what I'm saying.
That's the thing. The whole process has to go all the way back to really in utero. So let's see, it's neuroscience, and it's also epigenetics. Epigenetics is the study of the effect of the environment on the cells. Right. So if you're in utero and you're just this little peanut, you're growing into this a little fetus, your parents are having life, and mom is either happy and peaceful and things are great, or mom is stressed out because it's her first baby, or stressed out because it's her fifth baby. Maybe her husband is happy with her, maybe he isn't. Maybe dad is present, maybe he isn't. Maybe there's fighting. All of this information is collected by the cell and becomes part of who we are. So from in utero until you're approximately, there's different, I've heard 7 years old, I've heard 11 years old, your little tiny brain, there's no veil. All the information just comes into you, and you collect it, and it becomes the filter that you see life through. So let's just say that you were raised in a lousy situation at home, and there was fighting and frustration as a regular. When the switch in your brain goes off at around 11 years old for neuroplasticity, all of a sudden you're just running on the information in your brain, which was frustration and we'll just say abuse or ugly stuff. Now you don't even know how to look outside of it. If you're not looking at those very, very early stories, then you're not getting to the root of the problem.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I guess you would have to dig that deep to really process it.
But you know what? It's so simple, and most people really miss it. It's really as easy as creating a timeline. So you take a piece of paper and you go, who were my parents before I was born?
Right.
And so you write the story. Mom was alone and doing it on her own, or it was lovely, whatever.
Right.
And then you go, okay, my earliest memory. And say your earliest memory is at 3 years old. You write about it. And just a few words, you're like, I remember being abandoned in my crib. I hear that a lot, by the way, from my clients. Really? I remember crying in my crib and nobody coming for me. So you make a note about that. And then you make a note about age 4 and 4.5 and 6. And you just keep writing out the timeline up until current. And then what you do is one story at a time, you use a technique like EFT or another energy psychology technique, and you just address it. And you figure out, what did I feel when I was left alone in that crib? Well, you could guess abandonment. You could guess fear. You could guess betrayal, probably sadness. So there's a bunch of emotional words there that you would be able to identify. And then you tap it out. You literally release and let go the abandonment. I release and let go the sadness, and you just keep tapping. And that's how you do that kind of work.
Interesting. That's very cool. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get on YouTube and do some work for sure.
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
I am just a big ball of repressed trauma.
Oh no. Aren't we all? But that's sad.
Well, I mean, yeah, everybody is, for sure.
We all have our story.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Everybody's overcoming something. That's the truth of it. Everybody is overcoming something. And I think it is so important if we could just all agree to leave each other alone. Everybody is overcoming something. Stop the judgment. We don't need it.
Right. Don't exacerbate an already shitty situation.
Right. That's exactly it. I have this saying, and it's annoying as hell. And, my clients are like, they roll their eyes. But what you say when you see somebody who's upset you and you're like, you want to go off on them, you have to, first of all, take a breath. But then it's really like, interesting point of view. They have that point of view.
Right.
And you just leave it there.
I do that with myself.
Oh, yeah?
Just the thoughts I have, just random thoughts. Like I'm a recovering addict. So occasionally my mind will drift to, we should go have a drink. And it's like, it's a funny thing my brain's doing,
it's a funny thing my brain's doing. That's good language. I like that. Yeah.
I'm a practicing Buddhist, and I try to, apply mindfulness, which is essentially Buddhism. It's just packaged differently now. But and that really is what brings me back to center. It's just that the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path is, the first noble truth is life is suffering. So, people have this expectation of life being enjoyable all the time, and that's just not realistic.
Well, honestly, how boring would that be? For heaven's sake! I mean, you can't know light until you've experienced, couldn't have that incredible experience without knowing how dark can be.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to know one to know the other.
You have
unless
to.
you've suffered, you'll never know joy. So. That's the interesting thing about the polarity of life. There's without the good, there is no bad. And without the bad, there is no good. People don't understand. People, like I said, people seem to have this expectation of life just being magical all the time. And while it is magical at times, and that's, irrefutable, it's the times where life is suffering, which makes them magical, because without that, without the experience of the suffering, it just would just be common. It's not novel.
Right. I get it. You're making me flash back to some of my darker times, and I still can, as much as I've done a lot of energy psychology work for myself, and that is how I became the coach that I am today. Knowing where it makes me want to do better and be better and live a happy life that I'm living now. Everybody has something, and just the truth, the people who you think are, oh, look, they have all their shit together. Well, the truth is there's something they've either overcome it already or living it and they're faking it.
Yeah, absolutely. So how long have you been coaching now?
I've been coaching since 2012, but I've been in the spiritual journey, if you want to call it that, since probably 2000, a good 20 years anyway, of figuring out spirituality and what it was for me, and sort of leaving my upbringing, if you will, leaving the Catholic Church and trying to make peace with that, making peace with the way your parents raised you. And yeah, so coaching came naturally to me. And of course that's in my astrology blueprint as well. And I love helping other people. And I really feel it's one of the reasons I was put on this planet, is to help other people through these modalities.
I feel you. I feel the exact same way. What was it exactly that set you on your spiritual path?
That's a story in and of itself. I literally remember the moment my spiritual journey started, and it was when I was working at a job one day. We had all ordered lunch, and I ordered my standard sandwich. Somebody went out and delivered it and put it in the lunchroom for me. And they actually plated my sandwich that day. I remember I walked in and I saw the sandwich, and I laid eyes on the sandwich, and something went off in my brain, and it was like an audible click. Like I almost heard my brain shift, and it said, "You can't eat that sandwich." And I took a bite or two of it. I can't remember how much I ate. Very little of it I ate. And I remember my body just feeling different. And from that moment, I began to drop weight very, very rapidly. I'm tall and slender. I'm 5'7". And at that time, I probably weighed about 126 pounds. But I very rapidly dropped to about just over 110 pounds. I was sick as a dog, pale as a ghost, had zero energy. And nobody could figure out what was wrong with me. So what do you do when you're sick? You go to the doctor. So I did. Oh, wow. And I mean, they were doing every test they could think of. I got diagnosed with everything they would come up with something. I swear to God, they were making it up. And I went to specialists. It was crazy. And it was an 18-month journey of being really sick and my kids fearing I was dying, that nobody knew. And so one day I went back to that job, and this coworker hands me a card. She goes, "Oh, Tam, this is, I went to this friend's house and she had a psychic over there and I thought of you. So here's her business card." I'm like, "A psychic? Well, that's weird. Why would I want a psychic?" But I said, "Okay, I'll do it." So I invited the psychic over to my house. I had some other friends come over and I had my very first ever psychic reading. And I sat down in front of her, and she sort of grabbed me by the shoulders and she said, "Oh, honey, oh my," she said, "you don't even want to live. You have a solar plexus that looks like you've been shot by a cannonball. This guy, you ought to go." So business card later, this nutritionist, to find out he's not really a nutritionist, and he told me the system. He realization to do better within 24 hours. And in 2 weeks, my solar plexus and I was eating again, and I probably gained my weight with 2. And that was my journey into, is the chakra system? What is my spirit? What are spirit guides? My third eye. And it just started me in this huge, huge journey.
What was exactly wrong with your solar plexus again? You started breaking up.
In her words, she said, "Look, you've been shot with a cannonball."
Oh, wow.
She said, "You have a hole in your solar plexus. You are leaking life force energy." And she really gave a dire warning: if you don't fix this, you're going to go away. And sure enough, when I went to the shaman, the nutritionist, he was measuring my auric field, and he said, "Girl, you got nothing. You had nothing.
Wow.
And here's what you're going to do." And so he gave me supplements that would fire up my stomach, but he gave me the visualization of seeing a yellow ball of energy and doing a few things with my hands. And I had built back my chakra system in no time. I ended up becoming, I'm very, very healthy to this day. I really don't get sick.
How did you go about rebuilding your chakra system?
Through the visualizations that he gave. And really it was about using the energy that we emit as a human being, and bringing energy to your hands by rubbing your palms together, and then doing a clockwise circular motion just 3 or 4 inches over each of the chakras. So in particular, of course, I was working on the solar plexus. So I would rub almost imaginary, like rub my tummy in a clockwise motion, and I would imagine yellow light.
Is that like Reiki?
It's very similar to Reiki. Yeah. I was basically using my mind, my energy field to heal myself. It worked like lightning fast. Lightning fast.
That's amazing.
It is amazing, but I do amazing things with energy, and that's just one of them. I come from a long line of amazing energy. My father is a medical intuitive.
Oh, really?
So, yeah.
That had to be interesting.
Well, oddly enough, really, he was, I grew up a plumber's daughter. He was a plumbing and heating tech. He ran a very large plumbing and heating company. And when he was semi-retired, he's like, okay, time to be the real me. And all of a sudden, I discovered my father had had this gift for a really, really long time and had suppressed it. But now that he was retired, he's like, I'm going to go for it. And he did. He's like, he reads for thousands of people a year, and he's on the internet, and he's quite talented. And the apple doesn't fall far from the tree usually. So energy is just second nature.
That's awesome.
It's actually first nature, I suppose, right?
Yeah, I guess so. So you said that lasted 18 months. That had to be grueling. God, I can only imagine.
Yeah, it was really grueling. I remember, I mean, I'm a very vibrant person. I have a lot of energy, and most people can't keep up with me. And for me to be having to nap 2 or 3 times a day and laying around, and I just wasn't really used to going to the doctor. So having to be in a doctor's office a lot and not loving food. And I'm a Taurus. Taurus people love home and they love food. And for me to not be able to cook and eat, it was torture. It was just pure torture. Yeah. And it was a little embarrassing. You know, I'm sure people thought that I had an eating disorder. I didn't. I had a spiritual disorder. I really, honestly, I was awakening and I didn't know it. I feel like spirit was trying to shake me awake. So It worked. Here I am.
Yeah. It's so weird. Everybody has their own, unique story of how they, spirituality came into their life. I think that's just so fascinating hearing everybody's different take on what it was that exactly spurred their spiritual path.
Yeah. I there's no going back, you can't unring the bell. And I am so grateful for that journey with illness. Oh, like we talked about, you can't know the good until you know the bad. And honestly, because my journey to spirituality or where I am with spirituality now is everything for me. And having a connection to my spirit and being able to move mountains, it's pretty cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was a childhood illness, so I can identify with that very much.
Oh, Nothing's worse than that.
Yeah, it was pretty heavy. I'm over it. It was a long time.
Good. Well, wait a minute. You talked about you were a ball of repressed trauma is what you said.
Yeah,
so
my trauma was, it came earlier than that. I was 13 when that happened. I was already formed. I was already a ball of trauma at that point.
Gotcha. Oh no. There's work to do there,
It is what it is. But that's part of the fun is just, putting the work in. I like sitting in it.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't.
Doing the work. Yeah.
Something about the being uncomfortable. I find it actually comforting, which sounds completely insane.
No kidding. That is really, really interesting. Maybe it's the Virgo in me. Like I really like order and control, and I can't imagine being uncomfortable, but I can imagine that must give you some, how do I want to say that? Like it must help because you can't get too rattled, right?
Oh no, I get rattled all the time. But
oh, you do?
Right. But those are the lessons. That's why I enjoy them. Because for sure, I'm super order. I'm very much very orderly, and which is interesting because I used to be very chaotic.
Okay.
And that still comes up every now and then, but but I'm very much one of those, very scheduled. I'm very everything in its place, very clean, very tidy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Oh, you're sounding more and more like a Virgo. There you go.
See, I've known some Virgos. They were the polar opposite of that. They were just all over the place.
Well, it would depend on their chart, right? Do they have a lot of influences in other areas that would create the chaos? And also another aspect of astrology, and maybe particularly for you, is you might have a lot of planets in the area of Virgo in your chart, and that we know that your moon is in Virgo. Maybe you have 3 or 4 other planets there, and that would create that Virgo tendency.
Quite possibly.
Whoops.
Yeah,
you dipped out.
kind of breaking up a little bit. I don't know what's going on with the internet tonight, but it is giving me some trouble.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I got to sage my house. There's spirits.
Mine this weekend. I'm good.
Right. I thought I was, but I guess I was wrong. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I guess we'll try to wrap it up here because, like I said, it's just being kind of screwy. So
yeah, it's a bad connection. But look, there's plenty of work to do for us, and just like, keep on keeping all we can do. And
absolutely,
it's been great chatting with you and getting a little bit about your astrology.
Yeah, I've got actually like one more question with you. What would you say your goal with your work is, if you had to sum it up?
Yeah, I really am. I feel like I'm here to help people connect the dots. As much as I'm an artist and I actually remember connecting the dots as a kid, I feel like my job here is to help people understand themselves more. It used to be strictly through the transformational coaching, working with the belief systems and helping people believe differently. But I now know that it really is about helping people connect the dots through astrology. The more you know about yourself, the more you can grow, and really the smaller the hurdles are. So if I can help more people understand that, I think the world can be a softer, kinder place. There's a reason some of us are reactive. There's a reason some of us are more of an empath. There's a reason. And if you can connect that dot, I just think the world will be better off. And that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. That's amazing. And where can people find you at?
The best place to find me at is theenergyalmanac.com.
Awesome. Well, I will put a link to that in the liner notes of the episode. And I thank you again for being on.
Thanks so much for having me. Take good care. Have an out-of-the-world year.
You do the same.
Thank you.
Thanks again to Tam for being on the show. If you'd like more information on the Energy Almanac or her, it can be found at theenergyalmanac.com. As always, remember to subscribe, rate, and review if you haven't already taken the chance to do so. I really appreciate everyone listening. Namaste.
Chaos is beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Brand new Cadillac.